Winning the championship, the greatest feat in all of sports, truly something only attainable by the undeniable best ever. But what about the guys who were top 10 all time in nearly every stat and could play football better than they could speak, eat, drink, and breathe that never won the big game? I'm talking about three men in particular, one of them battling a team curse, the other outshining his predecessors but always overshadowed by them, and the last one saving his worst moments for the most important time. I think you may already know these three men, but let's look at how they did it, how they managed to have some of the greatest careers ever, but somehow never won a Super Bowl. Let's go back to the 1983 NFL Draft, one of the most stacked drafts in NFL history, with 1/4 of the first-round picks making it into the Hall of Fame. We're talking about guys such as John Elway, Eric Dickerson, Jim Kelly, and one of the men in question, Dan Marino. In the 1982 NFL season, the Dolphins under quarterback David Woolley, who I'm going to be honest, did absolutely nothing, went 7-2, the second best in the AFC, where they smacked the Patriots in the wild card round 28-13, then exposed the Chargers in the divisional 34-13, where they met the Jets in the championship round, winning 14-0, only to lose 17-27 to Joe Gibbs and the Redskins in the Super Bowl. The Dolphins desperately needed a new quarterback, and with the second-to-last pick in the draft, it didn't look like they would get anyone good. Luckily for them, Marino, the number one projected pick, was suspected of having a drug abuse problem, and his draft stock plummeted wildly, allowing the Dolphins to steal him with the 27th pick in the draft. So that went well, and the Dolphins wanted to make sure Marino stayed with a 3-year, $750,000 contract, which today seems like pocket change to NFL stars, but back then, this was a pretty decent deal. So Marino got straight to work in the offseason, building connections with his teammates and coaches, and his first season started immediately. Marino showed his talent, getting Rookie of the Year and becoming the first rookie to make a Pro Bowl with a 96.0 passer rating, the highest ever for a rookie at that point, 2,210 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions, leading Miami to a 12-4 record, getting to the first round to only then get beat by the Seahawks 27-20, getting no further in the playoffs than fellow rookie quarterback John Elway. While an early exit in the playoffs is never good, Marino showed promise and was only going to improve. Miami was excited to see what he could do in the 1984 season, and I'll just say he didn't disappoint. 1984 Dan Marino was every quarterback's wet dream. The man won his first MVP and broke the single-season passing touchdown record by 12 touchdowns, which was set in 1963 by Wyatt Tittle with 36 touchdown passes in a season. Dan the Man got 48, shattering that record, which had held for 21 years. It took 20 years for Peyton Manning to break this record by a single score. Before 2000, there were only 3 times a player had gotten 40 passing touchdowns in a season, one of them being Kurt Warner's magical 1999 season, the other 2 being Dan Marino. He also became the first player to ever break 5,000 yards in a single season. The man who was taken 26 picks after John Elway just threw 30 more passing touchdowns in a season than Elway. Marino led the Dolphins to a 14-2 record in the first round. The Dolphins steamrolled the Seahawks 31-10. Then in the conference championship, Marino gave us one of the best playoff performances ever with 421 yards, 4 touchdowns, and a single interception, beating the dominating Steelers 45-28. The 1984 Super Bowl was to be Marino's record-breaking Dolphins against Montana's legendary 49ers, who had already won the Super Bowl in 1982 and were looking to kickstart a legendary dynasty. And of course, Montana played insane, throwing 331 yards and 3 touchdowns to Marino's 312 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 costly picks. The Dolphins lost 16-38, helping start one of the most legendary dynasties the NFL will ever see. No, or anyone else know, but this was the last time the Dolphins made it all the way. In 1985, Marino had another good season with 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns, but a huge 21 interceptions. But the Dolphins had an early exit in the playoffs. Then in 1986, Marino had another great year with 4,786 yards and an astonishing 44 touchdowns with 23 interceptions. But this was his peak, as he wouldn't have another 30-touchdown season till 1994. He and the Dolphins wouldn't do much until he called it a career in 1999, with 61,361 career yards, 9th of all time, and 420 career touchdowns, 7th all time. He was inducted to the Hall of Fame in 2005. 1 year later, the Chargers would get rid of Drew Brees. Another top 10 quarterback all-time for Philip Rivers, who had sat behind Brees learning for 2 seasons to start. Rivers had an even better first year than Marino, throwing 388 yards and 22 touchdowns to just 9 interceptions, helping LaDainian Tomlinson lead the Chargers to a 14-2 record, only to immediately lose 21-24 to the Patriots. Then 2007 rolled around. Philip Rivers had a sophomore slump, with his stats being down across the board, leaving LT to carry the offense to an 11-5 record, but something special happened. The Chargers were doing insane in the playoffs. I mean, with the run they're on, they could be a dark horse and win it all. They play the undefeated Patriots in the championship round, and they lose 38-14. So that's not the best. 2008 saw the year Philip Rivers broke the 4,000-yard mark for the first time in his career, and he lowered the number of interceptions and threw a great 34 touchdowns. And there would only be a year after this where he didn't get 4,000 yards in 2012, so he played good, consistent football, but could never get past the Patriots in the playoffs. And after 2019, the Chargers traded him to the Colts, who needed someone to fill the crater-sized hole without Andrew Luck, and he played one last year in the league, getting 4,169 yards, 24 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions, ending his career with 63,440 yards, 6th in NFL history, and beating Marino by 1 score with 421 touchdowns, also 6th all-time. In 2008, the year Philip Rivers really blossomed into a star, saw the start of the last man I'll be talking about on this list, Matt Ryan. The Falcons took him with the 3rd pick in the draft, desperate for a quarterback after Michael Vick was arrested for his actions against his favorite species, dogs. Ryan had an okay rookie year, nothing special and nothing awesome, and his second season wasn't too much better. They made the playoffs his first year, but with a swift exit, and his second year, they just barely missed out. His third year was when he became a star, throwing 3,705 yards, 28 touchdowns to just 9 interceptions, a pretty decent step up. He had a 3-year stretch of consistency, making the playoffs, and 2012 was the first year he got over 30 touchdowns with 32. But then he started to get a bit worse. The Falcons barely able to make the playoffs over the next 3 years, but he was still getting 4,000-yard seasons in between 30 and 25 touchdowns. Say the number 3 keeps coming up with this guy. How weird. It's now 2016, and Matt Ryan had enough of barely missing the playoffs, so he worked hard and improved greatly over the offseason. Matt Ryan played out of his mind, getting 4,944 yards, 38 touchdowns to a measly 7 interceptions. He obviously won MVP and got the Falcons to the playoffs with an 11-5 record. They destroyed the Seahawks in the first round 36-20, then went to Green Bay, where the Falcons looked like the 2007 Patriots, winning 44-21, and now it was time for the Super Bowl against the Patriots. The game started slow, with neither team scoring a point in the first quarter, but then the second quarter came, Patriots scoring 3 and the Falcons scoring 21. They scored 3 touchdowns in the second quarter alone. Brady and Belichick were absolute bums. Tom is an old man. This game would surely end his career and the Patriots' reign of terror over the NFL. After another drive from the Falcons, the score was 28-3. That number 3 coming up again, it must be lucky, so the Falcons will surely win. 34-28 was the final score. Brady used his dark magic again to come back and win the game. The 2017 season happens with Matt having a bad year, probably still coping from that stinker of a loss. 2018 Matt Ryan was so close to his 2016 form with only 20 less yards and 3 less touchdowns, but nobody talks about it cause, well, the Falcons were bums in the playoffs. He played 3 more seasons for the Falcons before heading to one of 2 NFL retirement homes in the Indianapolis Colts, where he ended with some of the worst numbers of his career, then announcing his retirement soon after, ending with 62,792 yards, 8th in NFL history, and 381 touchdowns, 9th in NFL history. So that's it. Three elite players who played football better than anyone else, and none of them won the big game. Two having historic seasons, making it only to choke in the big game then fall off, and the other being so consistent year after year to only lose early in the playoffs or to a single team. So there it is. Hope you enjoyed this video. If there is any support, I will do more like this covering more interesting topics. Have a great rest of your day. Goodbye.